the screams behind the temple walls. The air was hot and dry on the planet Thazir. Dust swirled around the ancient temple walls like ghosts from a forgotten past. Marcus, a human explorer, wiped sweat from his brow as he stepped off the transport and looked around the small alien village. He had come here to study old alien ruins, but something didn't feel right. People stared at him but didn't speak. Their eyes held fear, not of him but of something else. Something they wouldn't say. As the sun started to set, Marcus walked closer to the tall, gray walls of the temple. It stood in the middle of the village like a giant tomb. No windows. Just one gate sealed with heavy iron bars. Strange symbols were carved deep into the stone. Suddenly, he heard it. A sound. A cry. Faint, but full of pain. It wasn't a normal cry. It was high and sharp like someone young, maybe a girl in pain. Marcus stopped. He listened again. Another scream. Then silence. No one around him reacted. The villagers kept walking, eyes on the ground. One alien man even hummed a tune, pretending. Nothing happened. Marcus stepped to the side and crouched behind a broken stone wall. He peeked through a crack in the gate. What he saw made his heart freeze. Inside the courtyard, 5 tall, robed figures surrounded a young alien girl. She had light purple skin and long silver hair, now messy and dirty. Her wrists and ankles were tied to the ground with glowing chains. Her body trembled with fear, and her thin arms tried to cover herself from the blows of the priest's staffs. She wasn't screaming anymore. She was sobbing now. Weak. Marcus clenched his jaw. "What the hell are they doing to her?" he whispered. A loud voice echoed from the center priest. "Let this punishment cleanse her of sin. Let no female speak the sacred words again." Sacred words? What crime had this girl committed? Marcus knew he couldn't just stand there, but he couldn't act yet either. He needed to understand more. He quietly moved away from the gate and circled the temple wall until he found a group of younger aliens whispering near a food stall. He approached slowly. "Excuse me," Marcus said. "Who is that girl? Why are they hurting her?" The young aliens looked up wide-eyed. One of them whispered, "You should go, don't ask questions, the priests are watching." Another said, "She went into the inner sanctum. No one, especially not a girl, is allowed to enter it." Marcus frowned. "She went inside? That's it?" The first alien nodded. "She wanted to read. Said she wanted to know the history of our people. But only males can read the temple scrolls." "That's not a crime," Marcus said. "To them it is," the alien whispered. "They say her curiosity is a curse, that it will bring bad luck to the village." Marcus couldn't believe it. Curiosity? Punished? He walked away, back toward the gate, hiding again behind the same cracked stone wall. He looked through the gap one more time. The girl was still there, still tied. Her face was bruised now, but her eyes were strong. She didn't cry anymore. She just stared at the sky. And then something happened. She turned her head, just slightly, and looked right at Marcus. Their eyes met. Her lips moved slowly. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Human. Help." Marcus felt his heart twist. The fear, the pain, the hope in her voice, it hit him like lightning. He stepped back. The sun was almost gone now, and shadows stretched long over the ground. He looked around. No guards. No one saw him. He pulled out his comlink and recorded a short message. "Log entry 47. I found something terrible. A young girl being punished for learning. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't leave her." He looked back one more time. The priest had lit torches and begun another chant. The girl lowered her head, too weak to lift it anymore. Marcus clenched his fists. "This isn't over," he said under his breath. "Not while I'm still breathing." And with that, he vanished into the shadows. Tomorrow, he would return. And when he did, he wouldn't be watching. He'd be saving. Marcus sat on a cold stone ledge outside the village, watching the sunrise paint the sky orange and pink. He hadn't slept all night. Not after what he had seen. The image of the girl chained to the ground, her silver hair tangled, her purple skin bruised, was burned into his memory. And her whisper, human, help. It echoed in his mind like a promise he had to keep. He tapped his communicator, but the signal was weak, too far from the central relay. No help would come, not from Earth, not from any government. He was alone, and so was she. Later that day, Marcus entered the village market. He kept his hood up and his head low. The locals still stared but said nothing. They were scared of the temple, scared of the priests, but some looked guilty. Some looked ashamed. He stopped by an old alien woman selling cloth. Her eyes were tired but kind. I need to know, Marcus said softly, about the girl. Why do they punish her? The woman looked around, then leaned in. Because she asked questions, she whispered. Because she wanted to read the sacred scrolls. Marcus frowned. That's it? She snuck into the inner sanctum, the old woman said. Only males of the priest class are allowed there. She touched the holy books. That's why they say she must be corrected. Corrected? He asked. Silenced, she said with a shiver. That night, Marcus snuck around the back of the temple. He had memorized the priest patrol routes the night before. He crept past 2 guards and slipped behind the storage shed, where he found a narrow crawl space beneath the temple wall. He slid through it, dust and cobwebs clinging to his jacket, until he emerged behind a stack of old stone tablets. He held his breath. He could hear chanting again. But this time, it wasn't punishment. It was worship. He peeked through a crack in the ancient wall. The priests stood in a circle, arms raised, eyes closed, humming low and deep. But they weren't alone. She was there too, kneeling, chained, her head bowed low. They had dressed her in ceremonial robes, not to honor her, but to mock her. She wasn't part of the ritual. She was the ritual. Then, the head priest spoke. His voice was cold, commanding. She read the sacred tongue. She entered the place no female has entered. This is not just a mistake, this is a threat. She must be cleansed, her voice must never rise again. The others repeated his words like machines. Marcus felt rage bubble in his chest. How could they fear knowledge this much? How could a girl, wanting to learn, be considered dangerous? Then, she looked up again, her face pale, lips dry, but her eyes were still alive. She wasn't broken yet. When the priests left, Marcus waited a few minutes, then crept into the inner temple chamber. She was alone now, still chained, still weak. He knelt beside her, his hand gently touching her shoulder. Her eyes widened. You came. Shh, he whispered. It's okay. I'm going to get you out. Tears slid down her cheeks. They say I brought shame, but I only wanted to learn. The old stories, the real truth. I wanted to know where we come from. Marcus nodded. That's not a crime. To them it is, she whispered. Only males are allowed to read the scrolls. Only priests may speak the sacred tongue. But I read it. I understood it. Marcus was stunned. You understood the ancient language? She nodded. My name is Nerali. I was born with the sight. I can read what others cannot. My grandmother used to tell me stories before the priest banned them. I memorized every word. Marcus knew then, this girl was not just curious. She was gifted. He pulled a small laser cutter from his belt. It wasn't powerful enough for the temple's main doors, but it could slice through simple shackles. He worked carefully, whispering to her as he cut the first chain. I'm going to get you out of here, Nerali, but you have to trust me. I do, she said. You're the first one who looked at me like I was not evil. Marcus smiled. You're not. You're brave. Suddenly, a shadow fell across the floor. A priest stood at the door, silent, watching. Marcus froze. Then the priest walked away, but not before whispering, "Run, human, before it's too late." The night was heavy and silent. Even the wind had stopped blowing around the temple walls. Inside the shadows, Marcus waited, hidden behind the old shrine ruins near the priest's garden. He had studied every path, every guard, every moment. They blinked or turned their heads. He wasn't just going in to look this time. He was going in to rescue her. Earlier that day, he had visited an old traitor who once served in the Planetary Rebellion. In exchange for one of Marcus's rare Earth-made tools, the traitor handed him a tiny satchel. Inside it, a silencer spray for energy locks and a collapsible carbon blade. Illegal, sharp, and silent. "This will cut through almost anything," the traitor had said. "But don't waste time. If the priests find you, they'll bury your bones inside the temple like the others." Marcus had just nodded. "I'm not coming out alone." Now, under the deep blue night, Marcus crawled again through the crack in the wall. His heart beat faster. Every sound echoed louder than it should. When he reached the chamber, he found her, Nerali, still chained to the center stone, arms spread, wrists bruised. Her silver hair covered half her face. But when she heard him, she lifted her head. Slowly. "You came back," she whispered, like she didn't believe her own eyes. "Of course I did." Marcus pulled the satchel out. "We're not waiting anymore." He sprayed the first chain's lock. A hiss of steam rose. The glow faded. The cuff clicked open. He moved to her ankle. Then the other wrist. Nerali winced as her arms fell free. She tried to sit up but stumbled. Marcus caught her gently. "Careful. They kept you weak on purpose." She leaned against him. "They fear what I know." "Well, they should," Marcus said, "because I'm getting you out of here. And when we do, we tell the truth." Just then a loud clang echoed through the hall. Marcus froze. Footsteps. Several of them. "Coming fast. Get down," he whispered, pulling Nerali behind a broken altar. A beam of white light shone through the chamber doorway. "Search everywhere," a voice barked. "The human was seen entering." 2 priests entered. One scanned the corners. The other approached the center, holding a spear. Marcus gripped the carbon blade tight. The priest stepped right next to the altar, a flash of metal, and Marcus moved like lightning. He grabbed the priest's collar, yanked him down, and hit the side of his neck. The priest crumpled soundlessly. The other turned just in time to see Marcus rush him. They struggled, blades clashing. Nerali, still weak, grabbed the downed spear and struck the priest's leg. He howled, just long enough for Marcus to knock him out cold. Silence again. Marcus was breathing hard. Nerali looked at him with wide eyes. You fought for me." "I told you," he said, "we're leaving together." They moved quickly down a back corridor. Marcus used the stolen spear to pry open a servant tunnel. The walls were narrow and dark, but Nerali guided him. "These tunnels are old. They once led to the scribe chambers," she whispered. "I used to sneak in here as a child to hear the forbidden stories." They pushed through until they reached the rear temple wall. But when Marcus reached for his laser cutter, Nerali pulled him back. "Wait. There's something you should see." She pointed at a sealed door hidden behind a curtain. On it, glowing softly, were symbols in the sacred tongue. Marcus stared. "What does it say?" "It's a prophecy," Nerali said quietly. "About the girl of stars and the Skywalker who will protect her." He turned to her. "Skywalker like me?" She nodded slowly. "I think it's us." Marcus hesitated, then smiled. "Let's not disappoint destiny." They made it out of the tunnel and into the dark forest beyond the village. Crickets chirped, distant beasts howled, but no alarms yet until a shrill bell echoed behind them. "They know," Nerali said. Marcus picked her up. "Then we run!" They rushed through the trees, branches slashing at Marcus's arms. Nerali held on tight, whispering directions. Behind them, searchlights began sweeping through the woods. Shadows moved, shouts echoed. "They'll catch us!" Nerali cried. "Not tonight," Marcus growled. "I didn't come this far to let them take you back." They reached a small ridge. Below was a deep river. Fast. Dangerous. Marcus looked down, then at her. "You trust me?" Nerali nodded without question. He jumped. The cold water swallowed them whole. The river slammed into them like a wall of ice. Marcus held Nerali tight as the current dragged them beneath the surface. The water roared in their ears. Cold, bit into their skin. For a moment, everything spun. Water, light, fear. Then finally, they broke the surface. Gasping. Alive. "Hold on to me," Marcus shouted over the rushing water. Nerali clung to him. Her weak arms trembled. "I'm trying." They floated downstream, hidden from the searchlights flashing above the jungle trees. The priests wouldn't follow them here. Not yet. The current was too fast, too wild. After several minutes, Marcus spotted a low branch hanging over the riverbank. He grabbed it and pulled them both out, crawling through thick mud. They lay on the jungle floor, breathing hard, soaked and shaking. Nerali coughed and looked up at the sky. "We made it." "For now," Marcus said. "But they're not going." To stop, he stood slowly, helping her up. She stumbled and he caught her again. Her body was weak. Cold. She hadn't eaten well in days. He looked around. The jungle was thick, dark green, and buzzing with alien life. Strange birds called in the distance. Soft lights floated through the trees, wild spores or flying bugs. Marcus couldn't tell. "We need shelter, food." "Rest," he said. "Can you walk?" She nodded. "I'll try." They moved deeper into the jungle. Marcus cleared a path with a broken branch. Nerali followed behind, her bare feet stepping over roots and moss. They found a small hollow between tree roots and gathered leaves to cover the opening. It wasn't perfect, but it would hide them for now. Marcus started a tiny fire using a heat crystal from his belt. He warmed some survival rations and offered half to Nerali. She took it slowly, sniffed it, then bit. Her eyes widened. "This tastes like joy," she whispered. Marcus chuckled. "It's just protein paste." "I haven't eaten in 3 days, she said. "This is a feast." As she ate, Marcus checked his gear. Only 2 flares, 1 broken communicator, 1 knife, and no med supplies. He looked at Nerali again. Her wrists were swollen where the cuffs had been. Her skin was pale. She needed medical help, but not here. Not yet. "We'll rest for the night," he said. "Tomorrow, we move toward the old mining road. I think I remember the map." But before she could answer, she winced. "Nerali?" She held her neck and groaned. "It burns. Under my skin." He leaned closer. "Show me." She pulled aside her robe collar, revealing a glowing red mark just under her skin. Marcus's face darkened. "That's a tracking implant." Her eyes widened in horror. "They marked me." He nodded. "That's how they're going to find us." She began to shake. "I didn't know. I swear. They must have done it while I was unconscious." Marcus reached into his belt and pulled out a small blade. "Then we get it out. Now." He heated the blade over the fire, then took a deep breath. "This will hurt, but I'll be fast." "I trust you," she whispered. He made a quick cut near the mark. Nerali gritted her teeth but didn't scream. Marcus used the tip of the blade to lift a tiny blinking chip from her skin and crushed it under his boot. Then he wrapped the wound with cloth from his shirt. Nerali leaned against the tree, breathing hard. "Thank you." "You're safe now," he said, "at least from their eyes." Just then, deep in the jungle, a sound echoed. A low metallic hum. Marcus grabbed his knife and stood. "They've sent hunters." Nerali looked up. "Not priests?" "No," he said grimly. "Worse. Temple enforcers. These were not old men in robes. These were trained warriors, half machine, half flesh, designed to hunt without rest, without emotion. Marcus looked at her. We move now. They ran through the jungle, branches slicing at their arms. Glowing eyes flickered behind trees. The sound of hydraulic footsteps followed close behind. They're fast, Nerali cried. They don't get tired, Marcus said. But I've fought machines before. Suddenly, one enforcer leapt from the trees ahead of them. A tall metal creature, its face covered by a smooth helmet. Blades for arms. It lunged. Marcus pushed Nerali aside and rolled under the blade. He stabbed upward, right into the joint behind its knee. Sparks flew. The enforcer fell, screeching. Go! Marcus shouted. Nerali ran. Marcus followed, grabbing her hand as another enforcer arrived. This way, she said, pointing to a narrow ravine. They jumped over a fallen log and slid down into the ravine, where vines and rocks blocked the path. Too small for the machines, Marcus panted. Good, Nerali said. Then we live another day. They hid in a cave behind the vines. The jungle was quiet again, but they knew it wouldn't last. As they sat side by side in the dark, Nerali whispered, You saved me again. Marcus looked at her. I'm not done yet. She reached out and gently held his hand. You're not just protecting me. You're teaching me what kindness feels like. The sky above the village turned red, not with fire but with the rising of the blood moon, a rare event on the planet Thazir. It was considered sacred by the temple, a night of judgment, a night when truth, sin, and fate were tested under the red sky. Marcus and Nerali had no idea that while they hid deep in the jungle, the priests had already planned their next move. The temple bell rang 12 times, and in the main courtyard, the head priest raised his voice to the crowd. Let the traitor return before the blood moon ends, or we declare her cursed forever. The villagers stood silent. None dared speak, but in their hearts, some began to question. Far away, in the shelter of a moss-covered cave, Marcus stared at the dark cave ceiling, unable to sleep. Nerali stirred beside the fire, wrapping the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Her skin still looked pale. The cut on her neck where Marcus removed the tracker had stopped bleeding, but infection was a risk now. Suddenly, the jungle trembled with the sound of distant drums. Marcus stood. That's new. Nerali sat up, listening. Her eyes widened. Those are temple drums. They're calling the trial. He looked at her. Trial? She nodded slowly. When the blood moon rises, they choose one soul to sacrifice, to cleanse the village of shame. Marcus understood instantly. They're calling for you. No, she whispered. Us. At that moment, 2 villagers stepped out of the shadows near the cave entrance. Marcus jumped to protect her, but the older alien held up his hands. We're not enemies, the man said softly. We heard what you did, what she did, and we believe she is not cursed. She is gifted. The second villager, a woman, handed Nerali a flask of healing roots. Drink this. It will help with pain, and you should come with us. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Why? Because if you surrender tonight in front of everyone, the old man said, you may be able to speak before the people. You might change hearts. Marcus looked at Nerali. I will go, she said, steady and brave. I will not hide like a shadow. If they burn me, let the truth burn with me. They returned just before midnight. The villagers gasped as Nerali stepped into the courtyard supported by Marcus. Her robe torn, her steps slow, but her eyes bright. The priest sneered from the temple stairs. You return to accept punishment? The head priest called. No, she said calmly. I return to speak. The crowd stirred. She has no right, another priest shouted. She is a girl. But the people didn't move. Marcus stepped forward. She has more right than all of you. She read your sacred scrolls. She understood them. And she found something you didn't want anyone to know. The head priest laughed. What could a filthy girl and a lost human understand of prophecy? Nerali walked toward the altar, her steps weak but firm. She touched the ancient stone and said words in the sacred tongue, a language only the priests were allowed to speak. The air went still, even the fire seemed to stop crackling. She repeated the prophecy. When the girl of stars dares to know, and the skywalker comes to shield her, the temple must choose, silence or truth. Marcus watched the crowd. Eyes were wide. Mouths were open. Some priests had gone pale. You knew this, Nerali said, turning to the head priest. You read it too. That one day a girl would be born with the gift and a human would come. That this temple was not made to control, but to teach. The head priest roared. Lies! He grabbed a ceremonial blade and rushed forward. But Marcus was faster. He stepped in front of Nerali and blocked the strike with his arm, taking the cut. Blood poured down, yet Marcus stood tall. He stared into the priest's eyes. If knowledge is a sin, then I am guilty too. Silence. Then someone clapped. One villager. Then two. Then the whole crowd. People stepped forward. Some shielded Nerali. Others helped Marcus. One young priest threw down his staff and knelt beside her. The head priest looked around and saw his power crumble. By sunrise, the temple doors had been opened to all. The scrolls were no longer locked. And for the first time in history, a girl walked into the scribe chamber, not as a prisoner, but as a scholar. The morning after the blood moon, the temple felt different. The air was lighter. The heavy silence that had once filled its halls was gone. Doors once sealed for centuries now stood open. Villagers stepped in slowly, unsure if they were allowed. But no one stopped them. The old order had fallen. And in the middle of the grand library chamber, beneath a ceiling painted with stars, stood Nerali. Her silver hair shimmered in the sunlight streaming through the cracked dome. Her hands rested on a scroll so ancient that even the high priest had feared to touch it. Marcus sat nearby, his wounded arm bandaged with fresh cloth. He watched her with quiet awe. You're sure this is the one? He asked softly. Nerali nodded. The scroll of Galtir, the one they called cursed. It was never about curses, it was about change. She unrolled the last part of the scroll, the letters glowing faintly. Her voice shook as she read aloud. When the moon runs red and the stars align, a daughter of thought shall break the line. A sky-born soul shall take her side, and truth shall tear the veil of pride. Marcus blinked. That's us. Nerali looked at him, eyes wide. It always was. But not everyone agreed. In a dark chamber beneath the temple, the surviving elders gathered in secret. The head priest sat, with his face bruised, pride shattered. We were fools to let them speak, hissed one. She spoke the sacred tongue, muttered another, and the people listened. The head priest stood. We still have time, let them taste freedom, let them believe they've won. But the prophecy says one more thing. When truth is revealed, the dark shall rise. They all looked at him. He smiled. There's an older prophecy. One they never saw. One I kept hidden even from the others. That afternoon, Marcus and Nerali stood before the villagers. Some brought offerings, fruit, fabrics, even old books once hidden in fear. A little girl approached and touched Nerali's hand. Can I learn too? Nerali smiled. Yes. You must. But just as peace began to bloom, a tremor shook the ground. Marcus turned. That wasn't wind. From the far side of the village, a black spire rose slowly from the earth. Metal and bone twisted together in its structure. The villagers screamed. It's the obsidian vault, Nerali gasped. That place was sealed centuries ago. Marcus grabbed her arm. What is it? She whispered. The place where the first priests buried their failures, their enemies, and the other half of the prophecy. Within the vault, dark machines awakened. Ancient guardians powered by forgotten energy. As the doors cracked open, shadow-like creatures poured into the air, spirits of those once silenced. At the top stood the head priest, now dressed in black robes, holding the scroll of night. He roared, "The truth has been spoken. Now let balance return through fire." Panic swept the village. People ran. Some tried to protect the temple. Others begged Nerali to stop what had begun. She stood frozen. "It's my fault." Marcus grabbed her shoulders. "No, it's theirs. But now it's our job to finish what we started." She blinked, then nodded. They rushed to the temple vault. The old scribe priest, the one who had secretly helped Nerali, met them at the entrance. "There is something you must see," he said, holding out a small crystal. Nerali touched it and her eyes widened. Visions filled her mind. The future, a burning world, but also hope. In every future that ended in peace, she stood beside a human, reading, leading, teaching. She gasped. The prophecy is not a warning. It's a guide. Marcus looked at her. "Then let's follow it." As the village burned and machines marched, Nerali and Marcus climbed the spire side by side. The head priest waited at the top, holding the dark scroll. "You were never the chosen," he growled. "You were the spark of destruction." Nerali stood tall. "No, I am the light that comes after." She spoke words from the sacred tongue, words only written once in all scrolls. The wind howled. The dark scroll burst into flames. The machines stopped. The shadows faded, and the red in the sky slowly turned to gold. When the dust settled, the spire crumbled into ash. The head priest was gone. The people of Thazir knelt not in fear, but in honor. Nerali walked down the steps with Marcus. Beside her, "The prophecy was never about power," she said. "It was about waking up." Marcus smiled. "Looks like they finally have." The temple was quiet now, not the old silence of fear, but the new silence of peace. For the first time in generations, the flames in the courtyard weren't from punishment. They were from warm, cooking fires. Children laughed. Scrolls once locked away were now open on wide tables. The people of Thazir sat in circles, reading, learning, sharing, and in the center of it all stood Nerali. She wore a simple robe of white, no crown, no titles. But when she spoke, even the trees seemed to listen. "This temple," she said softly, "is no longer a place of chains. It is a place of change." The villagers cheered, but her eyes searched the crowd for one face. Marcus. He wasn't standing in front of the crowd. He was behind them, near the steps of the old vault. Quiet, watching, bleeding, still healing, still guarding, always guarding. Later that night, as the stars came out one by one, Nerali found him alone by the edge of the lake that shimmered silver under the moonlight. He was skipping stones, his arms still wrapped in cloth. "You should rest," she said gently. He smiled. "I like the quiet." She sat beside him, her fingers brushing the water's surface. "This world is different now," she whispered. Marcus nodded. "Because of you." "No," she said, eyes soft. "Because of us." There was a long silence. Not awkward, just full. Then Nerali spoke again. "When I was a child, I dreamed of seeing the stars, not just the ones above Thazir, but the ones beyond. I used to imagine riding a comet or touching the moons." Marcus chuckled. "I've flown past comets. Trust me, they're colder and lonelier than they look." She laughed. "Maybe, but now I wonder, would you take me to see them?" He turned to her. "You want to leave Thazir?" She looked out at the quiet village. "One day. Not now. Not while they still need me. But when they're ready. I want to learn more, and I want to see where you came from." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. "Then I'll take you, wherever you want." The next morning, a new ceremony was held, not for punishment, not for sacrifice, but for renewal. Villagers gathered under the temple dome as Nerali lit the flame of unity. Behind her stood Marcus, not as a stranger, not as a savior, but as her equal. The same villagers who once feared him now bowed their heads in respect. As the people chanted songs of peace, Nerali took Marcus's hand in hers, and with a voice, strong and clear, she declared, "This human came not to rule or to burn, but to protect. When I was alone, he stood by me. When I was weak, he carried me. When the world called me cursed, he called me strong. He is no outsider. He is family. The crowd erupted into cheers. And for the first time in her life, Nerali didn't feel afraid. She felt home. Weeks passed. The temple became a school. The jungle paths were cleared and made into gardens. Children of all kinds, boys and girls, began to learn the ancient scripts. And the name Nerali became a symbol of hope. But at night, when the stars were clear, she and Marcus would sit under the sky and speak of other worlds, other stories. She would hold his hand and whisper, "Promise me something." "Anything," he'd reply, "that no matter what planet we go to next, we'll go together." He squeezed her hand. Always. One night, a young girl came running through the village. She was crying. "My brother fell from the cliff trail." Without hesitation, Nerali stood. But before she could speak, Marcus was already grabbing his pack. "Come on," he said, grinning. "Let's go be legends again." And they ran, not as a warrior and a priestess, but as two souls who had rewritten fate together, a girl once pinned to the ground and the human who lifted her back up forever.